All right, I'm going to start us off, and I'm sure people will still continue to trickle in as we get going. So, welcome, everybody. If you're in the Chicago area, it is like getting really dark outside right now. So, hopefully, I don't lose my internet or anything. Um, Welcome to March's CQAA webinar. Um, I am Mary Jo Zervis, the Program Director of Chicago Quality Assurance Association, and I just have a few announcements before we begin and hand it over to our speaker today. So as always, we want to thank our 2024 sponsors, SPR, Tricentil, Forte Group, Tricentis, Tech Systems, and Paylocity. Thanks to their generous support of our organization, we can present these monthly programs, other special events, keep our website running, and all of that great stuff. We are a nonprofit volunteer organization, so we're always looking for more corporate sponsors. If you think your company might be interested, please reach out to us at info@cqaa.org or go to our website for more information about our sponsorship program. Also, if you're interested in becoming involved in CQAA, we have 2 board of director positions open, treasurer and director of outreach, and we're always looking for volunteers. You can email that email again, info@cqaa.org for more information about that, or again, go to our website. Before we get to today's topic, just wanted to highlight an upcoming webinar. So we're still working on April. Something should be out there soon. But in May, Kevin Piles will be doing a webinar on testing the untestable, cracking the code of AI systems. So that registration and webinar info is out on our website. Please go see that if you're interested in that in May. And we will get April out there as soon as possible. So today's program, we've got Paul Grossman with us today, Dark Arts Wizard. Paul Grossman's published co-author of Enhanced Test Automation with WebDriver IO. He's also a framework architect, automation project manager, and user experience consultant. He's worked for over 25 years, worked with testRigor, Selenium, UTF, QTP. He advocates for both coded and low-code solutions, sharing tips with other SDETs. He hosts 2 fun sandbox e-commerce Halloween themed sites, candymapper.com and candymapper.net, that encourages novice automation engineers to hone their automation skills. So use those if you'd like some practice. And you can also watch his impossible automation experiments on YouTube at Paul Grossman, the Dark Arts Wizard. During this session, I'll try to keep everyone muted to avoid background noise. Please put any questions you have during the session in chat, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. And if you need anything from me or any of the other CQAA members on board, also just use chat, please, to do that, to communicate that. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Paul, and he will show us some dark arts for the next hour or so.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Mary Jo. It's always a pleasure to be here at CQAA. I think I've been hanging around here with you guys somewhere around 12 to 15 years. So, and every couple of years, they invite me to come over and do some cool stuff. So that is what we are going to do today. I'm going to, let's see, I'm sharing a screen, and I'm hoping if you guys can tell me in the chat, do you see Beyond Code and my mouse moving around the screen? And while I do that, I'm going to go and modify my screen so I can actually also see some of our questions at the same time. All is good. I'm getting yeses and all sorts of things and thumbs up. Fantastic. So a little bit about myself in this presentation. We're going to talk about Beyond Code when AI speaks your language. We're going to be talking about, well, this will be a little bit for coders, but mostly for manual testers. Because a couple of years ago, I discovered that plain English automation is a thing, and it actually surprised the heck out of me when I started really getting into it. If you want to see a little bit more about me and my history, every Halloween you can check out the Automation Guild. You can just look at their stuff. Just go to the last week of October. More than likely, whoever is presenting, that's going to be, I'm the guest. It's Joe Colantonio's show. If you want to email me, catch me at thedarkartswizard.com. And if you want to check out, as Mary Jo mentioned, YouTube, Paul Grossman, the Dark Arts Wizard. I have enough followers that I got a custom URL, which just makes me great. I don't have one of those nice YouTube things in the back that says there's 1 million followers, but if you want, please follow me. You can also catch me on LinkedIn.com. Strangely enough, if you communicate with me there, it's probably more, I'll get more responsive than trying to call my phone or message me in other ways. So do that. And I am out there on all social medias and just recently joined up on Substack over there. So if you're on any one of these guys, you'll find me hanging out there. So a little bit more about me. I've been in the industry for 25 years. Did 16 years with Mercury, HP, OpenText, UFT, QTP. That's their symbol over there. That language is VB Script. I don't brag about being an automation engineer working in the basic programming language. Nobody does. But I did make my mortgage payment for 16 years, so I do brag about that. 4 years in low-code test automation, doing stuff in plain English. 3 years working in Selenium and Cucumber, and then went into WebDriver IO for about 2 years working in JavaScript and TypeScript. And from that, I wrote a book, The Enhanced Test Automation with WebDriver IO. Paul Grossman, Larry Goddard over here. And I'm going to say, if anybody, I'm going to do a little contest here on this conference. I'm going to be asking you guys for something. And that is a URL, a public URL that we're going to test at the end. I don't care what it is. It's going to be on the fly. I'm on the hook for this. And if it all fails, then, of course, I'll never get a job again. But, okay, I'm willing to risk that. And so I posted up here on our chat. By the way, if you've got questions, please put them in the chat. I'll get to them as we get to them. We should have a little time at the end to take care of everything there. And I've played around with a whole bunch of tools, been testing in the fields. I've tested medical devices, red box machines, worked in the mortgage industry, and all sorts of different tools out there. CQAA, which is very popular out there. Zap Test, which is out there. When I say mortgage industry, do you mean real estate insurance? It was actually we're creating mortgages. And it's actually rate.com. I'll give them a shout out because they did a favor for me. They gave me one of these little fans out there, and the fan is nice. I won't turn it on. But yeah, and that was actually one of my most fun things I do. As a side note, what they needed on one of their situations with automation was they called me up on a Friday night. They called me a Friday afternoon. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon. And they said, hey, we are acquiring another mortgage company. We need to validate 5 things: the person's name, their phone number, their URL, their company ID, and lastly, their, it was first name and last name. And we're hiring up about 250 of these people. We need to make sure on Monday morning when they would go live that they are going to be active. And the thing is, it's Friday afternoon. There's an all hands call on Sunday night at 11 o'clock. And we're going to be testing all 250, all of these items over here. That's, that's about 1,500 different validations they wanted to do manually. And they figured it would take us about 4 hours just to catch everything. And they asked me, hey, can you do some of that Selenium automation stuff? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm working in the page object model. I do like to say my weekends are my own. I'll be there on Sunday night, absolutely. But if I were to create this page object model, test it all out, I'd probably be done by Tuesday in code. And they're like, oh, okay. And I said, now, wait a second. I actually know this other company called testRigor. They have given me a system, and they said, maybe I can use that to help out because it seems to be a little bit easier to do. So what happened was I wrote the automation script in about 15, 20 minutes. It was only 5 lines long. Just go to the URL, check all these items are on the screen. Found my first bug in the first 30 minutes. If you typed out the person's name, let's say it was Joe Colantonio. I typed in Joe space, and it would automatically show me Joe Colantonio works for this company. And then once I hit CO, it said, I don't know who you're talking about. Guy doesn't exist. So we wrote up that bug. In about an hour, I was able to get the full test data driven. And Sunday night came, we ran the test. We were running in parallel, 5 systems at a time. Found our first bug on the 6th one. There was a URL that was incorrectly pointing to a dead link. And within an hour and a half, we had 75 defects found, fixed. And by about 1 o'clock in the morning, everybody was back in bed and got some sleep for in the morning. So that is a side note. Vishalani, thank you for asking me and taking me on a side journey over here. All right, so our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about AI. However, generative AI is the big thing of the day. I'm not going to talk about that. Well, and I'll explain why. Also, we'll talk about the 5 verb-based element identification. This is going to be for our automation engineers. So if you want to build a self-healing element in your automation code, I'll talk a little bit about that and give you some ideas on how best to do it. We'll talk about the hello world of test automation and then see what would happen if we actually did an automation framework without a page object model. Everybody's favorite question, can AI solve my CAPTCHA? And then some image validation and the mystery demo. This is it. On our chat, I would like to ask if anyone has a public website, and I hate to say this, keep it clean, guys. Shoot it over there, and whoever one that I go out and pick, I will give you a prize. You can contact me on LinkedIn, and I will get you a autographed version of my book with both our authors, which is difficult to get because one of them lives in London. So that is my offer. You guys think about it while we're watching this, and in about 45 minutes, I'm going to ask you, give me some URLs, just post them over there, and the one I pick out there will get a prize. Let's go on over here. Tips and tricks. I always like to give tips and tricks and stuff. You're going to hear 2 of them on this session that you probably don't know about, and the first one is coming up right now. This has not much to do with automation, but I gave a similar presentation at Microsoft a couple of months ago, and they didn't even know about this. You know how you can do Control-C and Control-V, copy, paste. What I'm going to ask you to do is do Windows V. If you are a Windows user, I'm sorry about the Mac and Linux people, I don't have anything for you. But if you hit the Windows and V key, you're going to find that it will give you a little message like this that says, it'll say turn on. It'll have a little robot face on it. And if you turn it on, this will give you a history of everything that you've copied and pasted. It can actually also do, let's do a real live demo over here. Let's see if I can pull this off. If I can, I guess I can't. So I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go copy the message that is in my meeting. And I'm going to hit this Control V one more time and bring it up. And it says, here's the message that I copied. So you can put in, if it comes back, this demo is messing with me. You can have a history of everything, and it also includes images and stuff. One thing is, it's only good from reboot to reboot. I think most of us leave our computers on all day long. There was a time we didn't do that, but it is nice if it holds about 30 elements, images, and stuff. So this is my big tip. If you get nothing out of this automation presentation, please check that out. As I said, I showed it at Microsoft, and they didn't even know they had the feature, which is kind of funny. So that's our first tip out here on that. Let's move forward on this. I do want to mention generative AI is very cool. Every tool that's out there that we're working with, they do it. They all do it. It's cool, but it's like that joke. I don't know if you've heard this one. It's a little old. There's a drunk man who is out in the parking lot, and he's by a lamp, and he's searching around, and a police officer comes up and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm looking for my keys. I lost them. I dropped them." And so the police officer helps them look around for the keys for about 10 minutes. And then he asks the drunk, he's like, "Are you absolutely sure that you dropped the keys in this area?" He goes, No, I dropped them back in the parking lot." He says, "Well, why are you searching over here by the light?" He goes, "Well, it's brighter over here." That's the thing I'm trying to make is everybody's looking at generative AI and how it can create test cases, but it's not where we're going to be looking today. We're going to look at something even more interesting, and I think it's out in the dark parking lot. So, first thing I want to talk about is, amazingly, there's a Pareto principle I found in test automation, which is that there are 5 things that we do that essentially cover 80% of the automation that we want to do. Essentially, it's navigation. We want to go somewhere to some sort of mystery website, enter some data into a field, click a button, select an option from a drop-down list, and assert that some value is visible on our screen. You get that, you got 80% over there covered. Now let's take a look at the next thing is, what is the hello world of test automation? Well, this is it right here. Everybody does this as their very first time. They go and populate a username, a password, and just for fun, I added in a drop-down list to select an environment. I have a checkbox called Remember Me. I also have radio buttons that have light mode and dark mode. And if most of you don't know this, when you have an application that is that has a radio button or a checkbox, the interesting thing is there's no textual identification for those checkboxes or those radio buttons. Sometimes radio button might say second day and overnight. The actual element itself doesn't show anything, any textual information on that, but there is a div that's usually next to it that says the text, second day, overnight, dark mode, light mode, yada, yada, yada. If we were to do this automation in, let's say, Playwright, this is what it would essentially look like. You're doing your filling in your element, your identification for your input, your admin, your password is over here. I'm selecting QA from this drop-down list, and I am adding remember. I'm going to click on Remember Me and dark mode, and all this should work fairly well. And lastly, I'm doing a validation. By the way, a test without a validation at the end is not a test. It's a navigation, and that's all you're really testing. It's okay, but you definitely want to have some sort of validation at the end of every test that you've got. CQAA. Frank is saying, okay, Frank Kress, I got it reversed. I'm going to have to say I disqualify it, not for any particular reason, but because it's already in the demo that you're going to see in about 15 minutes. So I can't use CQAA. You're going to get that. So I'm looking for, hey, you got a smiley face out of that one. Excellent. Thank you, Frank. So anyone else has a public website, give it another shot. Who's this? Alina Sirs says, www. Chromulus organization. I will go check that out in just a moment. And I think, Elnis, I think you may have won. Hold on, Lamar. Give me a second. Elnis was in first. I'll double check it, but I think Elnis is probably our winner, but I appreciate that. So I've got 2 options. We'll see how we go. Back to this. This is how we're doing our coding. I also have documentation in here that says exactly what this is doing, even if this gets a little complex on this. So we have this page object model that will handle all this. Everybody's gone through that. But what if we didn't have a page object model? You know what? So I'm going to go and show you this link. This is our first demo. What if we just said enter admin into the username and just said forget all the CSS, the XPath, who cares? I'm going to go switch over here to our demo over here. I want to actually show you what this actually looks like. This is my test. And by the way, this is our second thing. I think everyone should check this out. Has anyone ever wanted to be a website designer or webmaster? I never had the time in my career to go and actually build one. But if you go to WebSim AI, you can describe what you want on the page and the thing will build it for you. This is what I use for my demos if I don't have some live public site. And you can go find me, Dark Arts Wizard, out there and see all the cool stuff that I am building. In this case, I asked it to build a login page with the name Hello World of Test Automation. And the credentials are these ones. And if I put in the credentials, admin and password like this, and I select an environment, QA, I can click on Remember Me, and I'll switch it to dark mode. It's just a dark mode. I click login. I get a message that says invalid credential. I mistyped something. I think I mistyped the password. Let's try that again. Hopefully that was all I did. Login successful. There we go. There we go. I had a positive and a negative test right over here. But this isn't the main thing I want to point out to you. I want to point out what this login button looks like. You can see over here that it is a button. But however, if I switch over to this line over here, and I go and look at it, I've just switched it. They're just close. If I go over here and click on this login button, this says it's a button too. I think I want this version out here. Let me see. One of these versions, I love it when a demo goes awry, because this is the most important point of the demo. So that's what I get for doing things live. You'll notice here that this is not a button class. This is a link class. So the actual class of the element has changed. Now, anybody want to take a guess? What happens when you're working with a page object model in Selenium or WebDriver or any other tool out there? What happens when the class changes? What do you have to do? That's 3 seconds. We have everybody muted, so nobody's going to be able to answer. You're going to have to go and do some maintenance. You're going to have to go update that element. Update the Selenium code, says Gabriel. Absolutely, he's correct. So that's maintenance. And if all the elements change, that can be a big headache. By the way, that did happen to me about 8 years ago. The entire underlying architecture changed all their links to buttons, and I had 100 test cases. Only one of them worked, and that was the login. The rest of it was dying. And it looked to us about 2 days worth of maintenance to fix all of that. I came up with some clever coding. I said, hey, you know what? I can dynamically create a element, a locator, an XPath, by instead of it being a link, I can get the same attributes and do it as a button. And if I can't find it as a link, I'll see if I can find it with the button locator. And within a half an hour, 98% of my 90 to 96 test cases were running, which was great. And an hour later, we figured out those last 4 out there. Well, 3 of them were weird elements that we just updated the repository, but it was better 3 than 100. And the last one, well, I got my ROI on that one. It was actually a freaking bug in the release. So we said, send it back to the developers. Go fix this. All right. So, and Lamar says, change the code. You got to change the code. Change the locators. The code would only happen if you were actually changing the path. But still, Lamar's got it right over there. You got to change something there. And you don't want to spend a whole day doing all sorts of maintenance. So let me take a look at this. We're going to do a login with a link. And I'm going to walk you kind of through. This is testRigor over here. I really can't demo everybody's tool, but I'm going to do it with testRigor over here. This is kind of cool. Enter admin into the username. Yeah, and it did it right there. Enter the password into username. It's plain English. There's no object repository. It put it in there. Select QA from the environment, and it did it right there. Click the checkbox near remember me. Now, I could click on remember me, but in this case, I'm doing relative element location. Remember I said checkboxes and radio buttons, it's usually a div that is next to the checkbox. Well, it's sitting there going, okay, I found remember me, and I found a checkbox that was near it. You could also say to the left of it, to the right of it, above it, below it, or above and to the left of it. It's kind of cool. It's just basically describing where things need to be without having to write that code where you chain this object to this object to this object and then go and click on it and hope that the XPath and CSS are correct. I'm going to go chug along through a little bit more. This is exactly what we had in those on that slide. We're going to go click on dark mode, which we did. It changed it to dark mode. It takes pictures every before and after every step, which is if you're doing a framework, please do that. Take a picture before and after. The worst thing you can do is think, yeah, it's a great idea. I ran this 127 step framework and it test and it failed. And I got a screen capture at the very end. But the error actually occurred on step 4. If you don't have screen captures, how can you solve the murder mystery? You know, there was a crime committed. We are the Sherlock Holmes, and we got to figure out what was the crime and how was it done. It's much better if we have security cameras on the crime scene at all times. This one, I'm going to go and check the page contains successful. Looks like it's successful. I want to point something else out to you. A lot of things that automation frameworks do is they're very strict. You must have the entire word. It must say login successful with an exclamation point. I didn't put the exclamation point there, and I didn't put login there. My goal always with my framework is to get as far as I can, because if the letter S is capitalized or lowercase, it's not going to lose the company money. What I look for is, I got to the end and I realized that the PayPal API is currently down and we've been losing a lot of money for the company. That's an ROI that I get to our companies. And by the way, Mary Jo and I do share a history. We actually worked at Redbox, and there was a time when I was working both on the Canadian side and the US side. And they one of the things I was able to do was to set up something that monitored and checked every time to see if the system was up and running every 15 minutes. We did that with CI/CD. It was my first experience with it, and I just can't say enough about that experience with Redbox over there. So much I learned with them working next to Mary Jo over there. Continue on. Other thing I mentioned is this S is uppercase. It still found it. And it found it because when you're looking for elements, you can look for it in the text, and you can look for it in the ID, you can look for it in the name, in the class, in the outer HTML, inner HTML, and you can write a framework that actually goes and finds elements like this. Like I said, the ultimate idea is I want to get to the end point there. And speaking of the end, that is the end of clicking. We are clicking with a link. This is the actual element that went to the link. This is going to, I think this is 1. I'm going to go retest this, update that, and retest it. And I'm going to come back to while that cooks, I'm going to go back to our presentation over there. All right. So we basically showed a page object in plain English, doing all these validations without having to do all that extra stuff with a page object model. As I was mentioning, XPath and CSS, those things, you have to, learn them, how to do it. You have to learn how to write XPath and CSS. I spent many years doing that alongside of regular expressions. A little tip for you. If anyone ever comes up to you and says, definitely use CSS because it's faster, they have identified themselves as someone who doesn't do any test automation at all. They're someone who is going and reading information from sort of Reddit, subreddit, or Stack Overflow, and because they don't know what you're talking about. I will tell you the reason for this. True. CSS is faster by milliseconds. If I would compare them next to each other, you wouldn't see the difference. However, CSS does not identify elements by text. It only identifies it by whatever's in the attributes, which means 95% of the elements out there where you're trying to find them, like add to cart, CSS will never find it. So yes, it's slightly faster, and it covers about 5% of whatever elements you're trying to find. It's actually really good at finding spinners. So XPath, CSS, what if we didn't have to spend all our time updating that stuff? So number 2, what if I make it easier? This is almost the exact same test. I'm going to select QA from the environment and click on login. I'm just going to go login. Let me go jump to that. See if I can find that one. Small login over here. I'm going to hit the retest, let it cook away. And I'll take a look at the steps over here. It's just saying select and log in and check page contains. One of the cool things I like about testRigor is that it has a built-in step called login. Since it is the first thing we always do, why not just by default automate it? And when a project gets created, the first thing we do is over here to create a new project, we ask you for your username and password. Pop it in, go create a new suite. And then under our settings, you'll see under the settings, we have authentication, and whatever I put in at that introduction gets put in here. And then they get put into a predefined variable. Over here, this is kind of cool. And the username and password, you can say enter stored value. That's the way we talk about variables. Username into the email and the password into the email. And this is all actually encapsulated into a rule called login. And so all of that is all connected together. So you could actually write a test that will simply log in and does it on its own. This is all built in. I like it. Let's see. This is saying select product, enter the stored value, and this is from the login rule. And is it actually doing it? Do we trust it? Absolutely. Admin, password, clicked on the login. That's also part of the exact same rule built in. I didn't have to build any of that stuff. And then click OK. And does it have successful? Sure did. Test case passed. How many seconds? About 9 seconds. Yay. How long did it take me to build that one? Let's see. I started on the 18th. What's today? Today's the 19th. I did this yesterday. And I started it at around, looks like 9:40. And remodified it 3 hours later. But I can take a look at my test case history. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that to 2140 is when I wrote the first test that ran. And I originally created this 40 at, gosh, I wrote the whole thing in 1 minute. That's kind of cool. A little tweak here and there just for the demos, but a couple of minutes, it's done. Didn't have to mess around with any code. Didn't have to mess around with any XPath or CSS. All right, so let's make things easier. And again, you can do that in code as well. Probably the first thing you have is probably a login, but it's probably saying login with this username, password. It's hard-coded. Don't hard-code it. Sue Foster is asking, in testRigor, is it possible to execute an API to set up the test artifacts prior to executing the test set, and then after the test, destroy the artifacts? No way. We couldn't possibly do that. I'm just kidding you, Sue. I don't want to get I don't want to get in trouble. Yes, you would have a before suite that would set everything up, and then you would have a after suite that would tear it all down. There's also a little tricky thing in reusable rules that they could be set up to auto apply and execute in between lines on the fly. And there was something else I was going to mention on these. So essentially, that would set it. Oh, yes. Since you asked, I'll jump over. I don't know if I have my documentation over here. And in case anyone's asking, does it do API? Of course, it does, just like every other tool that's out there. The only thing is that we make it super easy. Just call an API, post with headers, and by default, it checks to see that it actually came back with the 200. That actually worked. The API endpoint did it. And it also does API mocking, but we're not here to talk about that during this demonstration. But thank you, Sue. Sue says, sweet. Yes, I like sweet. I'm going to dismiss this. Hold on 1 second. I've gotten slightly distracted. I need to get back to my PowerPoint slide. Girl from Ipanema while we are waiting here for Polly to catch up. All right, so make things faster. Here's the other point is, what if this class happened to change from a link to a button? I don't know if you caught that. That's a link, anchor link A. It's a login button, but now it changes to a button. If you had a tool that was clever, like I said, that clever coding I wrote, where I said, hey, let's just create an element like this with as a link rather than and you can see login is in here as text. Login is in here as text as well. This has an ID and a class. Login is also in the ID, so I can identify that. But in this case, there is no ID, so I couldn't identify it by the ID, but you go for multiple shots to see what you can find. And you get your login over there. Would it work? Well, let's go take a look. If I remember correctly, let's go back over to our demo over here. Let's see, change the class from a link. Now this one said it hit it as a link. This one says go hit it as a button. We'll go hit retest over here. Let me go take a look at our steps. This is going into a login button. By the way, that's a variable that I stuck out there. So it's going to go over to our element that has a link instead of a button and perform the exact same steps that we did earlier. Now we're going to click on this login, even though it's now a link and not a button. And will it work? It's percolating over there. And we're already past it. 1 second. Over here, that's a checkbox. We're clicking on login. There's our login over there. Some more details. Says nothing failed. It still hit it. Didn't care what the class was. Class changed. Finding elements with lowercase, uppercase, substring matches, and case that changes. This is all about clever coding. And yet I haven't talked much about AI. I just wanted to kind of balance between the two here. All right. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to go back to our presentation over here, our PowerPoint, and let me just see, keep an eyeball on our chat over here. No new questions, so we're moving on. Next thing is, the more things change, the more they stay the same. No, that's not right. The more things change, the more we have problems. So I want you to take a look over here. I'm going to go back a moment. Let's see if I can go find. We have a checkbox that said, remember me. And we had login, capital L, one word. But what happens if we decide to change remember me to remember this computer? What if login becomes log in with a space? How in the world would you be able to handle that? Well, in this case, it would be a little bit of maintenance, but it's less than you would think. Let me go back over here, and we're going to go and take a look at this one. So in this case, I've gone over here. You can see it says remember me, but we're going to change the URL to the one that says this computer and log in over here. And what I'm doing is I'm going to go and click on, just clicking remember. It's just a substring match saying click remember. Forget the me, remember is out there. Hopefully this is the only one that matches on the screen in this sample example. Absolutely, it's the only one that's out there. But the other thing is we're going to go click on login, and I'm going to ask you guys, tell me, what do you think I changed click login to say? Type it in the screen out. Well, we got a minute over here. We got about 20 minutes left for the demo. I'm almost done over here. Maybe I'll just say it. I changed it to just click log. I just said click log. I don't care if it says log in. Log in is 2 words or 1 word. So if I click on log, it still gets it. No big deal. All right. Demo 4, and I have 10. Oh my gosh, I don't think I'm going to get to them all and do that demo. So we want to reevaluate testing. We want to look at it from a tester's perspective. As I said, the test identification is very important. Textual identification using XPath instead of CSS if you go that route. Looking at different areas to look at the attributes when we're looking at this. There's something else you may have heard of, data QA. This is basically an agreement between you and your developer that says, hey, we may change the ID. We may make it random letters and numbers. We might change the class to have different things, and then you have to try and keep up with that and maintain that. But we promise, we pinky swear, if we add this attribute data QA, this will never change. We'll never do it. We'll never mess it up. This is really great for automation engineers. If you pull this talk with your automations, and they can change whatever they want on the ID in the class. Your data QA will stay the same. Your automation tool should be able to handle that as well. We go find data QA over here. In this case, I'm clicking login again. Just log in. All right. This has data QA behind it. The thing is that I have this little trick in our settings over here where I can go to advanced, and I can tell it, I want you to, whatever you name that attribute. It's not built in because developers are going to change the name of it. But you can add custom attributes for finding elements, and it'll look for elements by that instead automatically. That's something also, like I said, not just an online tool. You can do this on a framework as well. Next up, we're going to, that is data QA. Now you guys all came for some AI stuff, so I'm going to show you a couple of things you can do with validating with AI. And we'll talk a little bit about a warning about AIs as we get to the end. This one is going to be validating some images. Here's an image validation. I'm going to show you what this says. View the steps. I want to go to the CQAA. Check the page contains CQAA. That's a standard validation. It's going to be somewhere on that page. And then I also want to do check that the page contains a CAAQ logo using AI. Plus, go a little bit further. Contains a man wearing glasses with AI. I'm going to go give that a real test. It'll chug away, but I do want to point out what we see over here. This highlighted CQAA. That's probably the one coming from this validation. It's a straight up text. But it also says contains a CQAA logo and also contains a picture of a man wearing glasses. I'm doing this for a very important reason to rerun this, because everyone's all excited about AI. The problem is AI comes currently with a lot of overhead. It's smart. It's pretty good at what it does. About 80% of the time it gets stuff right. But it is also slow. It takes several seconds to do those two validations. I'm going to suspect it's going to take about 24 seconds for it to come up. But it did pass. It's green. It says everything is cool. Now, I don't believe for a moment that the AI actually did that, so let's go take a look at the extra information. And I'm going to go, usually I have somebody I can bring online and have them read this, but I'm going to do this for you. I hate to read off the screen, but let's do this. The statement, it contains a CQAA logo, is true because the screenshot clearly shows a logo. It's in the upper left-hand, top left corner with the text CQAA and a banner celebrating 40 years of Chicago quality assurance, which matches the context of the page. That's kind of cool. The visual evidence confirms the presence of logo regardless of the page source detail. Now, what this means is it didn't see CQAA logo in the actual page details. If it did, it would say, I confirm that I see something that matches that in the page source as well. With that detail, I want to tell you something. I would kill 10 years ago to get this level of reporting to say, hey, it's exactly here and you can see it. And this is actually what I see up there. It's cool. Let's take a look at our second one. Contains a man wearing glasses. The screenshot clearly shows a man wearing glasses, working on a laptop, which confirms the statement. And the source does not provide any conflicting evidence, but the visual evidence is sufficient. Again, it didn't find anything that says man wearing glasses in the source, but it's like, okay, I think we can validate that as true. Is that cool? If anybody wants to think is cool, give me a thumbs up on our in our chat over here. We have 15 minutes left, so let's see if I can get to that live demo. We're on demo number 6. Now, that validation I just told you is okay, but let's do something a little bit. How about if we do a validation of a table? So I'm going to go over to our table calculations over here. And I'm going to show you something. Again, I built this in WebSim AI. Go check it out. I asked it for a list, a table of students with different GPAs and to calculate the average GPA. And then I asked using the AI, just make sure that the GPA calculated within 0.1% using AI. I had to put this in here because the AI calculated said 2.73, and that's not right. Like, okay, you're getting a little too much focused. Again, I will go and take a look at our description, and it's the AI comes back and says the average GPA, screenshot, verifies this. I summed up all of the values and gave us this total, and then I divided it by 10 students, which just gave us an average of 2.63, and it rounds to 274, and this is confirms that it is calculated correctly with 1/10. Is that cool? That's cool. Nobody gave me a cool on the chat. Oh man, that's okay. That's okay. One other thing I wanted to do, the second thing was in this step is to do a negative test. I want to verify that this other table, number 2, is calculated incorrectly. Let's go take a look at that. Yep. It says the average GPA of all of this is 4.2, 42, the answer to life, the universe, and everything. That's wrong. And if I go to more details and take a look at it, it comes back and says the displayed average of 4.2 is incorrect. It does not match the calculated value of what it came up with of 2.865. Where does the training come from as far as image identification is concerned? In this, it's on the fly. There's really not much training. What I can tell you, Colton, is that the more you run test cases with AI, the more it learns about your application and the more accurate it gets to do. Actually, in testRigor is one of the cool things that it can do with reusable rules. You can actually have a rule and turn on an AI base and let the AI figure out, add a product to the cart and let it figure out what steps would be involved in there. This is kind of neat. Not a demo for today, though. Thank you for that question, Annette. Thank you for the thumbs up. All right, moving on. So I just did the validation of a table using with AI. That's great. Next thing, a lot of people ask me, hey, can it solve my CAPTCHA? This is another question. If anybody asks it, it means you're a newbie. You've been in automation for about a week. I don't mean to insult anybody, please. There was a product out there called Death by CAPTCHA that could solve this. Solve all, click on all the Sarah Connors over there. But is there a fast, accurate, free way? The problem is, one, AI is slow. I already mentioned that. It takes 10, 12, 20 seconds. 2, ChatGPT has already got a built-in rule that says don't solve CAPTCHAs. So don't try it, and probably some of the other ones can do it. Maybe DeepSeek or Claude can do it. It's not accurate. It can make mistakes. And last, it's expensive. You have to pay extra to get it to solve this. You want to find out a way to do it fast, accurate, and free? Well, trying to ask AI to solve it is, again, like looking at their lamppost in the wrong area. And I actually asked Claude over here, what's it like if you try to pick a lock with a robot, you already have a key? What is CAPTCHA instead of whitelisting it, it's kind of like trying to train a parrot to dial a phone number. Dial? You don't have dials anymore. Dummy guy. Or write an algorithm that guess the weather when you could just look outside. Here's the thing. Go ask your IT security team or InfoSec if they can whitelist you. If you are on a manual testing team and you are solving CAPTCHAs, you're doing it wrong, please. And by the way, this is what I learned at Redbox. It was the first time I came across it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is slowing me down. And one of the engineers came over, let me just get your IP address. Okay, you'll never see it again. Same thing with automation. Whitelist this. Don't try and do the AI stuff. Our last demo we have over here is like the automation is like a salt in a soup. Add just enough to get your scripts to go to where you want. Not too much or the project's going to be slow. Use only where needed. I'm going to show you this one over here. We're going to go to Best Buy. We're going to go check out. And we're going to try and click on My Best Buy Memberships. So if I come over here, I go to my tests, and I have a Best Buy over here somewhere, validating tables. Which one? Take monkey, who's got the monkey? Data validations. Let's go. Let's do this. Best BUI. No test case? Oh, because I said best guy. Best Buy. BUI. There it is. AI fixes the test. So here's my test steps over here. I'm saying click my membership because that's what it was on the last sprint. And in fact, I ran it and it says I can't find my membership because it's my Best Buy memberships. But what if we could turn on AI updating, which I actually have to have that feature over here. And I'm going to say, please turn on, or We're going to auto adapt rules, and we're going to auto adapt tests. We're going to hit save, and we're going to go back to that test and give it one more run. And that was Best Buy AI fixes the test. We're going to go hit a retest on this and see what happens. Now, I am running out of time, so I'm going to go do the the French chef trick where I go back and look at a test that I actually ran previously. And this is what you would see. The AI would kick in and say, hey, I actually changed the script to click my Best Buy memberships. It says I'm looking at the page and I can see the original step was to click this, but that element doesn't exist. But there's a very similar one labeled my Best Buy memberships visible. So I'm going to go click that. And it shows you any errors over there. It says, hey, I auto-healed this. I couldn't find this element. Pretty cool. It's highlighted in yellow saying, hey, I made some changes. Maybe you want to look at it. I'm not going to fail it because it actually got to the end and did what I wanted. It fixed the test. Jamie says, does testRigor do other similar framework tools use your test to train its AI model, or is the data kept confidential? On testRigor, if you go and get the free model, we use whatever it is to train that. So if you want to check it out, there is a paid concept. You can talk to them about it. It's sales guys. But the other ones are private and on separate servers. So there is some stuff about, I think they work with governments as well, and they have to be secure on that. So Jamie, I would refer to somebody at testRigor in there to actually answer that a little bit better. The training, once it's set up internally, it's only on that test. It's only on your script. Okay, we are down to our last 5 minutes, and I promised I was going to do a live demo. So I think I'm going to skip our 10th one, and we're going to go take a look at, who was it? Alanis over here. She said, I want to see you do this test. So let's go take a look at this and see if I can get it to work in 5 minutes. I hope I can. I'm going to go edit my mystery test. I'm going to go making sure it's enabled. We're going to open up this URL over here, paste that in there. I'm going to let this run, and let's go see how much trouble Alanis has gotten me into. Hopefully this is Scrum Alliance. She's given a shout out for the Scrum Alliance. Okay, what do we want to do here? I want to verify that there's some guy over here. You want to shout out any validations you want to see me do? I want to verify while we're doing this. I'm going to say, oh, click find a course. I like that. So we're going to go click find a course. I want to go click find a course. Where's the one I have here? I want to go click find a course. Find a course. If anybody wants to shout out something that you want me to do on the fly, anything, yeah, find a course. Someone says, yeah, find a course. She's agreeable. I like that. Let's see, there's an enter. We want to check a page. Something is visible. I'm going to move that up to our front, page control Z. 1 second here. It will fail because all this other stuff the initial one will fail. I'm going to check that something is visible over there. I'm going to drag these over next to each other so we can get that done. I'm going to go back for a moment. I want to see certified driver. We'll put that in there. We'll validate that. We want to make sure this is visible. I want to check the page contains, what is this? A guy in a blue shirt. Containing a man in a blue shirt. We'll do that. Once we click find a course, we'll probably want to enter something. Let's see if we can do that. I'm going to let that cook for a moment. And I'm going to go click on find a course. Looks like we can select something. This is clicking on all credentials. I can select a language. We've got a language, available times. What's a good drop down? Good drop down. I have an OK over here. I'll probably click on that. Something I can enter some text into. Ah, man. All formats. It's not truly a select. And all languages. Okay. Not sure on how that's a drop down list inside of a drop down list. Trainer, all trainers. Let's try this. Select, click language, select English from all languages. Click. Click language. Language. And select. I always have this rule over here that I say, once the murder's been committed, we are interrogating the witness on stand. You never ask a witness a question you don't already know the answer to. Lawyers say that all the time. Look at this. The AI said it fixed something on there. It's just like, okay. I forgot that feature was still on. Select who was somebody. Let's see if we can get to it. Select German from all languages. Select German. German, spell it right. German people will not be happy with me. German from all languages. And I'm going to leave it there and see if this works. Languages, because we are right at the top of the hour. We could enter something there. We could select an item from a list. We're already doing that. I'm going to go save and retest. And we have 2 minutes. I'm going to take a look at our other runs. I did expect them to fail this one because it couldn't find text and play games. The AI is changing this on me. Okay, let me turn that off for a moment. Like I said, AI is cool, but at some point you want to be careful about it. That's a risk you get with almost anybody's system out there. All right, let's see what it did. I'm going to go over to our history. And while it's cooking, what was our second thing it did over here? We also have version control. We can see the differences between this. I can roll back to it. That is as simple as possible. We don't like trying to teach people how to use brain is falling, running out of a command prompt in order to do that. This guy said it's doing all this, and we're just about running out of time, but I'm going to see if it got to this. It was clicking on languages. All right. It actually found the language over there. It was clicking on it, but we did have a pop-up in front of it, and I don't see anything blocking that pop-up. I see Mary Jo is sitting over there. Anyway, I'm going to say, Elenis, if you can reach out to me, I will get you a autographed book, and this is basic. And it of course failed over here. I'm sorry, it's my. I'm going to run. Slideshow. I want to get that last one up there. Reach out to me at thedarkartswizard@gmail.com. I'll be looking for that. I will get you a book for free on that. One last thing I want to say, I like to help out my friends, Julia Pottinger. She is a brilliant in person test automation, and she is out of work out in Jamaica. If you guys could reach out, if anybody has a job that they might think of, please help out my friend Julia. She is pretty brilliant. If you want to learn more about WebDriver and coding, there's my book. And